Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy Spoor. I'm the Associate Director of ISSS, and I want to welcome all of our admin folks to our J-1 Exchange Visitor Workshop for spring 2025. I'm joined today by my colleague, Irene Anthony. So go ahead, Irene, introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Irene Anthony. I'm the International Student and Scholar Coordinator, and I work predominantly with J-1 visas.
We really want to emphasize to everybody that this is the spirit and intent of the J program. So Penn, as a university, is authorized by the U.S. Department of State to sponsor J-1 exchange visitors to the U.S. And this is the purpose of a J-1 program. So it really, you shouldn't think of it as, I need to hire this guy, so I'm going to do a J-1. That is not the spirit of and intent of the program. It is really a citizen diplomacy program that was instituted well, almost over 50 years ago, I think, going back to, you've heard of Fulbright. Well, that was a U.S. Senator Fulbright back in the 60s. JFK, they wanted to do more citizen diplomacy. So that's where the kind of J-1 program comes from. And the idea is that we are engaging in educational and cultural exchange. And the key word there is, for us, is educational exchange, meaning they're going to come here to do some educational things where they're going to learn about American culture and American society and etc. And then return to their country, exchange back and forth, not I'm coming here to work and get a green card. Okay, that is not the spirit of the program. So I want everybody to just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So again, it's a temporary exchange of foreign nationals into the US, and it's part of the Department of State. Okay, so think again, diplomacy. This is a citizen diplomacy thing. It's not to get the free labor for the lab, for the PI. Okay, although unfortunately many of our PIs seem to view it that way, but that is not the purpose. Um, and the J-1 Exchange Visitor Program is managed partially by uh, ICE, Department of Homeland Security, in the SEVIS system. And the SEVIS system is a database that all of our students, our F1 students and our J1 students and our J1 scholars are all in this database. And that's what Irene and I are users on that. And that's what we use to generate the documents for Penn, to bring people to Penn. Uh, okay, next. And these are things that we need to consider when we're thinking of bringing someone from abroad. You need to consider, a variety of things to bring before you're even going to entertain bringing this person. So immigration history. Um, Generally, except for J-1 interns, the person would have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree in the related field that they're coming to be a scholar or a researcher or something in. They've got to have funding. They've got to have the J-1 uh, insurance coverage, and that's set by the U.S. government, not set by Penn. And strict adherence to their original program objective. This is something that comes up fairly often where we have to set a program objective, like they're coming to do research in chemistry. So that means that even if they change they could potentially change from one chemistry lab to another chemistry lab, but they can't change to physics because their original program objective was chemistry. And we all know that our scientists like to think it's all related, but the State Department does not necessarily think that. So what is their program objective? What is the field that they're in? They have to stick to that. Um, And they have to have entered the US and be in valid J-1 status before they can start to be a postdoc or whatever they're going to be at Penn. Um, and our school internal policy, this mostly applies to School of Medicine. And that is our biggest customer at ISSS is School of Medicine. And you really want to know the School of Medicine visiting scholar policy. This is not set by ISSS, okay, nor by the governments. It's a School of Medicine thing. So if you're an administrator from School of Medicine, please be aware of the School of Medicine policy. And there are, various stipulations about bringing people as J1s and what their title can be, etc. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but please be aware of that because we work closely with BPP and other parts of School of Medicine or just the university in general to make sure that people meet the policies of mostly School of Medicine. So J1 exchange visitors. This was something that was luckily was clarified by the State Department after COVID, is that um, remote work for J1s is not a thing. They are here to be exchange visitors, meaning they need to be physically on our campus and interacting with our other staff or faculty or students. Um, and that is the point of being an exchange visitor is that you're present in the community, in the educational setting, etc. So you can't be outside the US for extended periods, nor can you work remotely in the US somewhere else. You can't be our exchange visitor and be based out of Chicago. Okay. The idea is that you're here at Penn, and there are certain rules about that. We want you to follow that out of country process. If someone will be out of the US for more than 30 days, multiple coming and going, 1 month in, 1 month out of the US, 1 month in, 1 month out, not allowed, not allowed. And this is not only is this a immigration problem, but it's also a payroll tax problem. That's why we've had to bring in our partners from Penn Global Support Services because that is a payroll and a tax issue for the university as a whole. And
Jeremy, can I add
sure.
to that first bullet, the second sentence? If a scholar will be outside the U.S. for an extended time, please contact Penn GSS. It's actually for 30 days. If someone's going to be out of the U.S. for 30 days or longer, two steps have to happen. One, through IPEN, the scholar would submit their notification of being out of the U.S. And then in GSSS, that portal, either the PI or the BA has to complete that part. And most people know well in advance if they're going to be outside the United States for 30 plus days. So make sure you're allowing plenty of time for internal review, because a lot of times Penn GSS and our office work very closely together in looking at the same case. So again, you need to provide some time for us for that review.
And we're really asking you as the administrators in the departments, um, please kind of be the eyes and ears to this kind of thing because we know that, uh, you know, postdocs or visiting scholars will make these crazy plans with their PI and they'll be like, well, I'm going to go back to my lab at Spain for 3 months this winter because the weather's better in Spain and I'll just work remotely. We have uncovered many such cases uh, like this that is really a no-go for the university as far as payment and things like that. So please bring those cases to our attention, hopefully before the traveling is going to occur. Um, and and so we can try to be compliant. This is a battle. for us and for um, payroll tax, GSS, and it's really a compliance issue that please, help us keep the university in compliance, even if your PIs are cutting side deals with people to go work remote. That is not the way it's supposed to work.
And just to add to that last bullet, to be even more specific, scholars must be predominantly in the US on the Penn campus. So not even working from full-time remote from their home, down on Market Street or wherever. The Department of State guidance that Jeremy referenced earlier talks about someone having to, a J-1 having to be on the premises 3 out of the 5 work days per week. So that's another caveat to be aware of.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Um, yeah. So J1s cannot be used for like staff positions like we have. It's only for temporary situations. Can't be for tenure track. Um, and nothing clinical. Okay, this goes for School of Medicine, dental medicine, nursing, veterinary. Even animals are classified as patients, so can't have any clinical contact. Um, and we have a lot of patients of all types here on campus, and we really want you to be aware for our J1s that you're doing with ISSS, they are purely for research, um, not for patient care. Um, all right, let's see. Document requirements. We want to make sure that when we're collecting the documents, this is through the IPEN system, that they need to be translated and that the funding amounts on that are given in IPEN versus what's given on an offer letter or appointment letter, they really need to match up because we've sometimes had this problem where we run into there's one number on the letter and there's a different number in IPEN. So please help us get those numbers to match. Um, and any of the forms or documents need to be signed by someone of the appropriate authority. It's not It's a little unclear who the appropriate authority is, but we try to indicate on those forms as best we can who should be signing them. And Penn is a big, diverse place, so it's a little bit gray, but we want to make sure we've got someone with authority signing off on these documents. Um, so minimum funding, that's pretty low, 2340 a month. That's really kind of poverty level wages. We certainly like to see them be higher, but this is a level that's set by the State Department, and we expect it to be revised most likely upward for minimum. If they're a postdoc, you have to meet the postdoc funding levels for any J1 postdoc. English language requirements. We want to make sure that the exchange visitors are able to interact in English with their American colleagues and counterparts. Um, we've there's several ways to confirm this: TOEFL test, or we have a Penn ELP test that is on our website that you can contact the Penn English Language Program to confirm this. And the other option is an interview using our evaluation form. Um, we'd like to emphasize that in the past, well, I'd say year to 18 months, we've had a couple of occasions where we've had to send people back home because their English was not sufficient to interact and to do their research here. Um, Sometimes the PI will be from the same country as the visiting scholar, so their intent is to do all their interactions in their native language, and that is not the purpose of the program. So I just want to emphasize that we actually have on, I want to say, I mean, two occasions, maybe three,
Hmm.
we've had we've had people arrive and then we had to cut short their program and send them home because not because of their scientific skills, but just because of their English skills were not sufficient to support the program. So we
And
had to send them home.
there have been situations where the PI might say, but they speak a language that everyone in the lab is speaking, and that doesn't matter. Their English, by regulation, their English has to be at a certain level, more so for their protection, right? If something happens to them and they're out on the street or in the public and they're not able to communicate clearly and effectively in English, that's a problem. So regardless of what language is spoken in the lab, they still have to know English.
And if your PIs argue with you about this, we can help you out with that because we control the J program, not the PIs.
Mwah.
Yeah. Yeah. But this has, I guess we want to let you know this has been this issue has come up before and we dealt with it. We dealt with it. So you can always bring us in if you see a problem in your area. Health insurance. So J1s have to have the health insurance that meets the J1 requirements. And we basically we kind of outsource this to um, Garnet Powers, which
Also known
is
as Gallagher.
Gallagher. Now it's Gallagher. Yeah, geez,
It
it's
keeps
Gallagher.
changing
Yeah,
changing
the
titles.
companies have changed their names, but we outsource this to Gallagher because they are a provider for our postdoc insurance. No, not anymore, right?
No, postdoc
Okay,
is through the postdoc plan within the
right. It's through the
university.
postdoc plan, but Gallagher helps us to kind of vet outside insurance to make sure that it meets the requirements because they are kind of a insurance and consulting company and the university has kind of out we are not insurance experts but they are. So when people say, well, I have my own insurance from my country, that determination, Gallagher will help us make that to make sure that they are compliant with the J1 um, insurance rules and regs.
Yeah, and we receive twice a month. We receive a list from Gallagher, a list of J1 scholars who have either not purchased the insurance, there's no record of them having insurance, or they haven't paid their bill through Gallagher, or they haven't provided waiver information for the alternate type of insurance they may carry. So a lot of times I will CC you as the departmental reps on the emails. So, and oftentimes I'll get an email back from the scholar saying, "But I have my own insurance. I don't need Gallagher insurance." And that's when I say, reread the email I sent, because even if you have your alternate insurance from your home country, you still have to enter that information in Gallagher. You have to go into their portal, enter, upload that alternate insurance so Gallagher can review it to make sure it does in fact meet the requirements of the J1 program. So if they are here not as a postdoc and therefore don't qualify for the postdoc plan, they either have to, one way or the other, they're going to have to log into Gallagher, either to purchase it or to upload insurance showing that they have coverage that does meet the J1 federal regulations. And again, Gallagher would review that.
Okay, export control. So this is a federal government thing to make sure that we are not transmitting information technology, commodities, etc., out of the U.S. that that may be detrimental to U.S. Security. And this is something that our our labs and our professors and our scholars need to take seriously. We have some forms that have to be filled out by the sponsoring department, and sometimes there are questions about this export control of technologies, and there is a specific office for this at Penn. Jesse Buchanan is the director of export compliance, and we happen to have the checklist and the form, but this is not an ISSS controlled process. So if you have questions on the export control, you need to talk to that office at Penn. So we have several different categories of J1s that we sponsor. J1 is kind of the overall immigration category, but then within that, there's kind of subcategories of different types of J1s. And these are the ones that we have: professor, research scholar, short term scholar, student intern, and specialist. I think specialist we rarely, if ever, use. Don't think we have any of those, but we do have a lot of research scholars and short term scholars and student interns in the summer. The student intern refers to someone who is a student in their country, either a graduate or undergraduate student that may come to the US for a semester to do research of some type in their field, and then they're going to return to their country to graduate. Um, so we have, and that I want to say, Irene, that's mostly summer, but not completely, right?
Not completely.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's, yeah.
yeah. So here's the professor research scholar, and they are kind of twins. Um, and it depends on, if you're going to be a professor, you're probably going to do more teaching. If you're going to be a research scholar, you're going to be doing more research, but they can do a little of each depending on which is their main thing here. Um,
And I
but
would just, sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Just where it's underlined to engage in research, teaching, observing, consulting in connection with a research project. So just keep in mind when you're completing an IPEN application, sometimes the description, the layman's description that is where you're prompted to complete 2 or 3 sentences in layman's terms what the person's going to be doing. Sometimes it just says observe, consult, blah, 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 but there's really got to be a research dynamic or part to it. Like what is their research that they're doing? And the reason we really want to look at that is in case we are ever audited by the Department of State, we want to be able to show them what exactly it is that the scholar is doing in the United States. And then that subject field code on the DS 2019 form, there has to be a correlation between the two. So we're really asking you so that we can document that we have knowledge as to what the activity, the precise activity the scholar is going to be undertaking while they're here.
Okay, and this professor research scholar can be a minimum of 3 weeks, maximum of 5 years. Most people are more like a year or two or three or four or five. We don't do many really short ones like this. It's usually a year or plus. Okay, next slide. Short-term scholars. Uh, this is for folks who are truly short-term. They can come for 6 months to do some activity, uh, lecturing, observing, research, etc. But it is not extendable. It's basically 6 months and you're out. And then, yeah, and this is something that you got to be sure of when you invite the person, because if they've been here for 5 months, you can't ask us later, oh, can they stay for a year? We're just going to say, nope, that's it. You're done. So there's no extending. So that's a good strategy. If you want to limit the person, you can invite them for 6 months and they're out. And you say, well, that's it. And you don't have to, debate a longer appointment. Um, and the other part about short terms is that they cannot repeat this, go out for a month, come back for 6 more months, go home for a month, come back for 6 more months. That's not the purpose. And it can also not be used for folks who are a research scholar for 5 years and then they need 6 more months. It's not for that either. It really needs to be truly short term, and then they're finished. They might come back 2 years later. A good example of this might be we have a professor from some other university, and they come here to teach a course for 8 weeks each year. And they're only in the US for 8 weeks, and then they go back to their home university. Maybe they come back in 2 years to teach a different elective. That's something that a short-term scholar's is a good use of a short-term scholar. Here's a little bit more about student interns. They are a student in their home country, and they're going to return there to graduate. Uh, and it's really an internship, uh, and they're not really here to be employed at Penn as labor in the lab, right? They're part of some kind of exchange or internship program from their home university, and they're coming here to do something. Okay, next slide. Yeah, here's a little bit more. Could be up to 12 months. There is a internship agreement that needs to be filled out by the department. And Irene, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that their home institution in their country has to also sign off on part of this.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
They have to basically say the person is, and there's text, formatted text that has to be used that basically says they're a student in their home country, that they haven't graduated yet. They're anticipating on graduating such and such a date in the future, and that this internship is part of their overall um, college degree work or
Yep.
graduate level work.
And they don't they most likely they have not completed their bachelor's yet. Maybe they're doing this for their sophomore summer or their junior summer. They're coming to Penn to do research, and then they're going to go back home in September to, wherever they are in, in their universities. So it's a useful way to have younger folks, or they don't have a bachelor's, they're undergrads, and they can do this. Um, all right. Irene, was this where we switch? I
I
want to
think
say
so. Yeah,
we're
I'm
about in the middle.
happy
Okay,
to take over.
so we're gonna have some we're gonna switch voices on you here. We'll let Irene continue. So go ahead.
So there's something called the 24-month bar. There's a 12-month bar and the 24-month bar. And not to confuse things matter, there's also a 2-year home residency requirement. So basically for the bars, when you hear the term bar, it's only going to affect people who are returning as research scholars. So if they have been here as a research scholar in that category of the J-1 program, let's say they've been here for a year, and for whatever reason they decide to pack up their bags, go home. Um, they are barred from coming back again as a research scholar in that category or professor category for 24 months. It doesn't bar them from if they want to come back as an F1 student or if they're not subject coming back in an H visa. It does bar them on repeat participation in that particular category. So even if they've been here for one day as a research scholar, if they depart, if they finish their program and depart, they cannot come back as a J-1 research scholar or professor category for 24 months. And that's at Penn, any other university that provides sponsorship for the J-1 program. And this is just an example. It's very convoluted. I mean, even I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. So just keep in mind that when you're putting in a petition or a request for J-1 sponsorship, we were going to look at if the person's been here in the U.S. previously as a J-1 research scholar, and if so, when that was, because it has to be for more than 24 months in the past. Um, Oops, did I slip one? Nope. Okay, so the 12-month bar is a little bit different because if you've been in any category of the J-1 program within the past year for longer than 6 months,